Well, it looks like you have somehow accidentally stumbled onto the channel Riding with Marshall, and I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody that watches this. Some small amount of effort goes into making these videos, and I hope that you get some small amount of satisfaction from them. In this case, we are at a Royal Enfield demo event at Cheyenne Motorsports in Cheyenne, Wyoming, who happens to be a Royal Enfield dealer. What do we have to ride today? Guys, how's this for classic? In fact, it's called a classic. It's a Royal Enfield 350 Classic Chrome. And you're riding with Marshall today, and we're going to ride it. I really got to hang on tight, though. That 20 horsepower, yeah, that can be strong. 20 horsepower, 19 foot-pounds of torque. Let's have fun with it. So after throwing a leg over it, the first thing I notice is the minimal controls, and the key is on the headlight nacelle. The kill switch is also the electric starter switch. Now that is common, but it sure looks different. Very retro and very cool. The sound is a low putter like a Bonneville, but 3 times more quiet. This is a 350 after all, not a 900 or a 1300. With the wind around my helmet, there isn't much to hear. Thanks to a GoPro human interface failure, I have no sound for you to hear anyway. The bike is as easy to ride as a department store bicycle, and I'm thinking this ought to be a blast. Let's find out. First, some history though. This isn't a copy of some other brand's heritage. This is a re-release of this company's very successful machine. The Royal Enfield Bullet Classic 350 is a reintroduction to the 1948 model G2. It looks every bit like a museum piece and is sure to turn heads at any and every stoplight. It is a distinguished gentleman's ride. Of historical note, the G2 was the first motorcycle to use swing arms for the rear wheel for a softer ride. The rest of the world took notice and followed that engineering design. Even the mighty Harley-Davidson eventually. And by eventually, I mean decades later with the 1984 Softail. Always better late to the party than never. The G2 engine has been in production well into the 2000s. I think the 350 finally got a makeover in 2009 when it gained fuel injection. However, in keeping with the traditional classic, the improvements to the engine, brakes, and suspension are all hidden under the hood, so to speak. The classic 350 has a whopping 1 more horsepower than the original, at 20 and 19 foot-pounds of torque. This gives it the same feel of the original bikes that were known and collected the world over. It's not built for speed. In fact, getting to 70 miles per hour proved a challenge as I tried to catch up to the leader of the ride. So what does it feel like to ride? It's a time-traveling experience, except with a much more reliable powertrain and braking system. If you are used to modern bikes, this might feel like a heavy bicycle to you, and that's the joy of it. It's completely naked, and what few gauges and switches there are serve a full-time purpose. Who would buy this bike? This bike would make an excellent beginner's motorcycle as it is completely unintimidating and controllable with a wheelbase under 55 inches, and yet with a style not shared with every other bike on the road. With a price under $5,000, it's easy to pay it off in a few years or less. The seat height is nearly 32 inches, but there is very little width to this bike, so your legs stand straight down. With a weight of only 430 pounds, it's a lightweight for a classic. Even if you are not a beginner and want some eye candy to take around town, this is the bike. Are you on a college campus? Offer that pretty lady a ride around the oval, and I'll bet she won't turn you down. Now, who it isn't for is the interstate touring group, and that shouldn't require saying. Anything over 60 miles per hour is a struggle, and the 3.4-gallon gas tank would also be a limiter. So just take the side roads, take your time, and do it in utter classic style. So if you didn't like the bronze, you can get the classic in army green. So if the classic is a little before your time, you might try the mighty Super Meteor 650. It's not a single cylinder like the classic, it's a parallel twin cruiser, and this one is Astro Black. Let's take it out for a spin. This model might hint at the 80s and 90s chrome cruisers, but it ends there. The instrument cluster is modern, and the second gauge can be paired with the Royal Enfield's app to give you turn-by-turn directions. The switch gear is real metal, a surprise in this price group. Speaking of which, the MSRP is about $7,000 in the US for this color, and goes up for the two-tone paints. That starts looking a little more classic. That price gets you a lot of bike, but it doesn't get you cruise control or a shaft drive. This is a parallel twin with a chain drive. But hey, at least you're getting the most you can out of that 650. So what is it like to ride? The power of the engine, in a word, is adequate. Remember, this is a 648cc motor. In American cruiser speak, that's 39 cubic inches and a half. This gives you 47 horsepower and 39 foot-pounds of torque, and that's me rounding up. It weighs only 531 pounds with a 90% full fuel tank, and it's considerably less than my Honda Fury Cruiser. Maybe this is why I felt like the forward pegs were a little out of place. I'm not sure why. I've ridden many motorcycles with forward pegs. I own one, and the forward pegs on this one just felt a little strange. You need to go ride one and tell me what you think. Now with a 4.1 gallon gas tank, you can ride far further than the classic, and reaching 70 miles per hour is no problem, although the pleasant vibration in the handlebars gets more noticeable after that speed. So why isn't this bike competing with American muscle? Let's look at the source. It's made in India, which may not have a large market for bikes to cruise at 80 miles per hour all day. And then there is the price point. Can you buy a cruiser brand new right now for $7,000 that has more than a 650 engine in it? So who is this bike for? Like the classic, it makes a great first bike. It also makes a great bike for someone who doesn't want or can't muscle an 800-pound beast around the garage. If you are a person who wants to get back into riding after years of, well, not riding, then here you go. Finally, it's for anyone who wants a bike to go anywhere on the connecting farm roads between towns, although watch the rough pavement. I really shouldn't categorize, though. I've bought many bikes that another person of my riding years wouldn't have, like the Fury. Some bikes just call to me. Is the Super Meteor 650 calling to you? Well, come to Cheyenne Motorsports and see one for yourself.